part of the Earglue Media family of podcast.
You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Adler and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Al Rapidia, and this is episode 290, the D23 reaction show. We said we'd come back to cover all the news only if there was something worth reporting, and well, unless you've been living off the grid or in a bunker this weekend, you probably are all aware of just how much we got. So to help me make sense of it all, or at the very least make this up as we go along, please welcome our very own Disney file, Mr. Jonesy. Jonesy, welcome to the show, and just how big of a fan of Good Morning America are you now again this year?
I'm a fan of YouTube, which is where I saw everything afterwards. I didn't have to go watch Good Morning America.
I had it was like a knock on Operations Center. I was sitting there monitoring all these computers and monitors and stuff. I had the Good Morning America show on. I had YouTube running. I had all my feeds going, waiting. And I thought, okay, I'm for sure Good Morning America is going to be where it's going to be at. And no, the trailer, whatever this thing was, what they're calling, broke probably a good 30 minutes before it actually even aired on Good Morning America. So yeah, it was a smart move to go to YouTube and not me, who was just sitting there waiting and watching. I don't know. All they kept talking about were fires, and I'm not making light of it, but there's a lot. The whole world's burning apparently, according to Good Morning America. So, but anyways, now that I got that off my chest,
right?
So we're gonna do. This is obviously the D23 reaction show. A little bit of a change in terms of the format. We're not going to hit news because essentially this whole show is nothing but news. There were a couple other things that happened that were not D23. We may revisit some of those on the next episodes if we choose. But maybe just a word of caution before we begin. Our on-the-air policy has always been that we do tend to break down anything officially released by Lucasfilm or Disney. And so to that end, we will be covering everything Star Wars that broke at D23. And although there are, other leaks and spoilers and content like that you can find out there, we're not going to go touch on any of that stuff. So that said, if you're somebody who is trying to stay pure, innocent, the show's not for you. You're probably going to want to go to the next one or just go into a bunker somewhere, like we said, or go into a rock, because this is going to be really hard to avoid over the next, 3 to 4 months here. So.
Yeah, if you've lasted this long without hearing anything about it, you are pretty amazing.
Amazing. Yeah. All right. We ready to do this?
Let's do it, man.
All right. So let's talk about we'll just jump right in because I do want to talk first before we get into the Rise of Skywalker and Mandalorian. We had on Friday, they did the D23 Legends panel, and this was a kind of a mixture of all these different types of IPs. Like, Frozen was in there, Star Wars, obviously all the Marvel stuff. And it was really just kind of get everybody going, get their spirits going. But we had a small, brief section in there. I want to say it was less than maybe, 15 seconds, 20 seconds total, where they did show us some episode 9 content. And did you get a chance to watch this whole thing? Because I don't think I ever saw anything official. Everything I saw was kind of recorded on phones or, I won't say camcorders because that's probably showing my age, but there was nothing official that was released, I should say.
Right. Yeah, I got to watch the shaky cam version of it. Mm-hmm. And you're right. Some of it was revisited from what we saw in the official trailer a few months ago, but there were a couple of glimpses of Vader's mask is making a return. I think that's the one that got everybody most excited. But yeah, it was a little bit different. I thought that was what we were going to get today, Monday.
Yeah,
I thought we were going to get something like that. And so when we did not get that, it was a bit surprising. And part of me was like, okay, well, where's the rest of it? Do we get the rest of it? Or is this going to be like Celebration where the public gets a little bit, but there's still this exclusivity of being at the event that's going to be maintained?
Yeah, there's, I was with you too. I won't say this was disappointing, but had we only gotten this would have been pretty disappointing, I would say.
Right.
You said it opened with the, Kylo Ren doing the body slam. The very next shot is something we haven't seen yet, and it looks like some kind of a ship. It almost looks like a blockade runner that's kind of just sitting there parked.
Yeah,
if you zoom in, there's somebody like like rappelling off a rope or something down the side of it. And the planet itself looks kind of snowy. So the first thing I thought was like Zori Bliss. Again, I don't really know what her character is or what she does, and other than being some kind of a bounty hunter. But that was the only thing that came to mind as far as what that possibly could be. It's a very quick shot, though. Right.
Yeah. This is Kerry Russell's character for those who might not quite be aligned with the names yet. And I think when we get to the sizzle reel or whatever, there's another ship in there that's causing some, I don't know, speculation and analysis, as well as what ship. We're seeing a new ship with the I keep saying rebellion, and it seems more appropriate now than ever, which we'll talk about. But the Resistance fleet, a new ship in there that's getting some speculation maybe around the Zori side of things. But yeah, we'll see.
There's, we got a quick shot of Poe. He's kind of coming into the scene. He's looking around. He looks pretty distraught and concerned. But it's so fast, or really, it's even hard to put a context around where he is standing or what's kind of going on based on what we've seen so far. We got Finn wearing a vest. That's kind of cool. If you're in fashion.
It's funny that's news now.
I know. Well,
Finn's wearing a vest.
Man, trust me. When I was taking notes in this, I'm like, well, I guess I'm talking about the vest because there's not a whole lot here. But there is an interesting line there. I guess we hear Rey say, "It's too dangerous. I have to go alone," and that's, I don't know. It's something that Rey would do, and we'll talk. I want to come back to that if I remember. I want to come back to that line because I think it ties into some of the stuff that we saw in the teaser trailer thing that we got this morning. We got Rey and Finn. Looks to be on that new jungle planet again. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. And then you mentioned Vader's mask, and the only thing that was interesting about that Vader's mask, it looks like he's keeping it in some kind of is it still smoking, or or is this in some kind of like cryogenic freeze where he's keeping it preserved for some reason? It looked like there was mist coming off of it. Am I right?
Yeah, it does. It looks like there's some sort of it lends the question of whether he's actually doing something with it or not, right? Mm-hmm. And we see it a couple of different ways and different times, but we didn't really know what happened to it after Force Awakens. We didn't know if it got destroyed with Starkiller Base or if it was on the ship or where exactly it still fits into the story. So it was really nice to see it make a comeback, though, and that it is still present and it's playing a part in some way. And this connection that Kylo has with it still exists, and it's still going to frame up a bit of where his character is at.
Yeah. You think we're going to get him talking to the mask again like we saw in The Force Awakens?
I think he I don't know. Yeah. If that scene exists in the movie, it seems like there has to be some sort of context to go with it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess he could look longingly at it with some really dramatic music. I guess that works as well, but still, it seems like you have to have some sort of dialogue to really push whatever it is you're trying to do, unless there's dialogue around it that helps you understand that. And maybe he's getting some sort of, I don't know, what's it called? Like a impression from the Force or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the only thing that came to mind for me was maybe that was the moment when or just before he decides that it's time to don the mask once again, right? He sees it again. He's looking at it. He's talking to it. He refocuses his inspiration and what he was trying to accomplish in The Force Awakens and decides to go reconstruct the helmet that we've seen now in some of the other footage as well. But beyond that,
cue our 80s music where he starts building the mask back.
The montage. Yep.
Yeah, all right. Montage music.
I'd love a montage. If they could get like Stan Bush just come in on a flying guitar and just rip it for a montage, it'd be great. No, not really. So yeah, and that was pretty much it. Again, it was pretty quick. There wasn't a whole lot there, but it was still kind of nice to see some of that stuff. There was again maybe 3 or 4 shots that were new. Let's talk about Disney Plus next, and there's really not a whole lot here. Interesting enough for me, at least. I've been like really morbidly curious about how the UI was going to work, and I know this is not the most exciting news, but it was cool because they did show some of the Star Wars stuff that when they were doing a demo, there was a couple demos that were put out there. I think I linked one in Discord where someone was given a demo of it, and it was pretty dry. I mean, the guy didn't really have a whole lot of personality, but in terms of the demo, of the actual UI, it looked okay. I mean, it didn't look awkward, and it looked pretty clean. And I'm going to go, I want to apologize up front because I meant to take a note before I did this, but we actually had someone that we talked about the UI in a past episode, and someone reached out to us and they were part of the design team that was actually behind all of this. And I asked him, I said, "Are you under any kind of NDA?" And he's like, "No, it's really nothing like that." And essentially what he said was they had taken the Hulu UI and kind of made some minor tweaks to it, but that it felt and operated very similar to what you see with Hulu today, which makes sense since given Disney, purchased Hulu not too long ago. So I kind of went in with that mindset of thinking, okay, let me try to see where I can find it. It didn't look exactly like Hulu, but I could see the inspiration. And if they did kind of put a fresh coat of paint, so to speak, on it, it definitely looked that way. But what did you think of the UI? Again, I know it wasn't too exciting, but pretty much what you expected.
Yeah, I thought it was clean, and I like that they're still bringing in these modern elements where you have the video animations. If you watch, I don't have Hulu, but I have Netflix, and when you hover over something on Netflix now, you get the video starts to play, you get animation. It feels more interactive. And Disney Plus is definitely borrowing from that. I presume that Hulu is doing something similar. So you have these really active environments going around you. But I thought the organization looked pretty good. I thought it was, they've cleaned it up. They've got very clear categories that they are going to direct people into. And they've got other ways in order to go back and research and resort and do some of that, as well as profiles. I mean, the things that you really expect from a mature service up here, they're going to be their day one. And I think they said, how many profiles can you have? It's like 7 or 10 or something like that.
Yeah, it was quite a bit.
Right. And you can have a kid's version as well. So you can do focus more on the kid friendly stuff. I'm super excited because Phineas and Ferb are going to have a new movie. So
yeah,
I saw that and I gasped out loud. It was very embarrassing. Glad no one saw that. But yeah, it's kind of what you expect, right? It's supposed to be a polished service. You already own Hulu, so it makes a lot of sense that you should come out of the box with a very mature and polished product. And it looks like they're going to. I mean, they seem to be pretty excited about even like National Geographic, which I got to be honest, I kind of am too, because I remember that being a staple of growing up and having access to some of that and being able to maybe see if I can convince my daughter to watch it when I know she's just going to go back over to Descendants 3 or something instead.
Right. The what do they call it? Nat Geo, whatever the fancy cool term is to say the National Geographic Television Channel. They do a pretty good job. Like there are a number of programs that we'll watch from time to time, and nothing in particular. Just as we're scrolling through it, there's always something on. You click on it, and they do a pretty good job. It's very, I don't want to say Disneyfied, but it's a pretty good product. So I'm like you. I'm pretty excited about that. I was pretty excited about the Lizzie McGuire.
Oh boy!
No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. I'm joking. Maybe. All right, let's move on.
Yeah, you're not.
The pricing for Disney Plus. They had a promo there. If you were there, you could sign up for it at D23, or I think good friends like you mentioned, good friends like our Mr. Crowley was already a D23 member, so I think they maybe had made that pricing exclusive to them as well.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe that's the case. But then Jason tried to sign up to be a gold member of D23 today, and he did not appear to have the special pricing extended to him. So a little uncertain how that was, and didn't have a chance to connect with them and see exactly what was going on. But yeah, I don't know. You could just pay full price because you're concerned Disney might go out of business. I mean, that's always a thing.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. But they
buy American.
Buy American. Disney Plus, I think it's $7 a month here in the US. And if you were there, so long as you signed, I think it was a 3-year commitment.
Yeah.
You got it for like $3.92 a month.
Yeah. Big commitment, but it's basically getting, I think it comes out to about a year for free.
Yeah.
So not too bad if you're all in on it. And quite honestly, they had we know all the stuff that's coming from Marvel. We're going to talk about some of the things that are coming from Star Wars. And we don't even have one of the things in our show notes here that was announced as a surprise. And we'll talk about that. But yeah, so there's going to be a lot of content. I mean, and clearly they're going to bring, like you said, they're bringing the kids shows back to even the Lizzie McGuires and all of that, and the Phineas and Ferb. So they're going to produce new content that appears to be exclusive to Disney Plus, or at least will get first run on Disney Plus. And some of the things that they also highlighted like for Star Wars, is that all of the theatrical releases will be available. So you'll have it there, even though they won't be exclusive to Disney Plus for a while, as some of the other deals expire over time. But you're going to have the full catalog of all of these movies available to you day one. And for $7 a month, that's not bad, especially if they're able to deliver on a consistent stream of new content, which I think is going to be the real value driver. And it seems like they've got a fairly solid plan developing, and we'll see how quickly it can take off.
I'm excited. I honestly can't wait. I've said it. We've been talking about this, I know, for a few months now, but it just seems like it's totally worth it for me. Even at $7, it's a steal. I feel like I should be paying more, to be honest. And maybe that's what Disney's hoping, get us locked in, put out some good content, start jacking the prices, typical business model that most companies follow. So,
well, again, people will pay it if you're continuing to produce original, really good content.
Yeah.
People
or
will be
just
more
Star
than happy
Wars
to
stuff
pay it.
for us.
Right. I mean, but I like the Marvel stuff has been great too, that we've seen across the board. Yeah.
Oh no, dude, there's so many. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like I have so little time as it is, and I could spend what little free time I have today just doing Disney Plus content and wipe out everything else that I even have any time to do. You know what I'm saying? Like there's just so much there that I really think it's a great value for $7, provided that you're into that stuff. So, all right, well let's talk about the Mandalorian next, because we did get a couple things quickly. And I guess from a news perspective, they've already said that season 2 is about to start filming here on October 7th. So I think we had gotten word. I think we may have talked about it on the show that they had already done a second season. We knew they were going to be committed to at least 2, possibly 3 seasons with this, maybe more. I guess we'll see how the show goes and how successful it becomes. But any other details? I didn't see anything else about it outside of the fact that it was starting.
No, not with season 2. I was actually a little surprised that they were already starting to film it, though. It hasn't even released and already moving on to the next season. And again, I'm sure that's because there's a longer lead time, a lot of special effects. We know that many of the episodes have already been written, so maybe that makes sense. And if they're reusing the same sets, you don't want to tear them down necessarily.
Yeah.
So that might make sense.
We got a new cast member. So Ming Na Wen has been added to the cast, and I don't know in what capacity. I don't think she'll make it in the first season. Be kind of cool maybe if she did in the last episode, and that kind of helps hook into the second season, but she is coming back for season 2. Any speculation there about what she could possibly be doing? I know it's hard given we haven't seen anything from the show, but...
Right. Yeah, no idea, but the crowd reaction to that has been overwhelmingly positive. You might recognize her from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., she's a main cast member on that show. And she also did a voice. Who'd she do? She did a voice. What? Mulan. That's right. Goodness gracious. Yeah. Very well known and respected actress, and excited for her to join the cast. I always enjoyed her on the S.H.I.E.L.D. show.
I remember her from ER, but again, I'm dating myself. So
yeah, you are.
Yeah.
Well, hell, that show ran for like 20 years. So
yeah, that's true. Long live Doug and Carol.
Oh,
all right. So what else we got? Oh yeah, there was a trailer, official trailer.
Oh yeah.
This was a little bit surprising for me. Let me just kind of preface this, at least from my perspective, and I'll let you weigh in as well. But, we did get a chance to we saw some footage at Celebration, and we spoke about that, broke that down. If you haven't had a chance, you can go listen to that episode. We talked about what we saw and kind of first impressions. And I would say this trailer was, it was much more polished. What we saw was rough, and I think that's why they were intentionally not wanting to release it publicly. But it was a little underwhelming for me, and I'm not saying it was bad, but you said it best. You said it was more, what'd you say, stylized or pictures or?
Yeah, it's more imagery. Yeah,
more imagery. Right, that's a good way of saying it. It didn't seem, there wasn't a lot of dialogue. Obviously, he didn't speak, and maybe we got some dialogue from him, the Mandalorian, in the stuff that we saw at Celebration. But I mean, there was really nothing here. I will say that we got some really cool action sequences that we didn't get from the last one. But overall, don't get me wrong. Again, I'm super hyped for the show. I'm very excited for it. Again, to me, this is worth probably $7 a month alone. If you did nothing else and just put out this show, I would pay $7 to watch it. That said, I guess I was hoping we'd get a little bit more. But the imagery itself, I thought was really cool. So what were your first impressions?
Yeah, there were a lot of establishing shots, right? So the ship going across the plains, kind of getting an idea for the environments. I liked it. I mean, the music really captured me right away.
Yeah.
I can't even quite articulate what genre the music fits into, to be honest with you. I can't quite place it, but it really does capture the spirit of like an old Western, but also this really foreign vibe to it. And you really get a great idea of kind of what you're stepping into. But I think to your point, we didn't get a great idea of the story that we're going to see, or where these episodes are going to take us. What does this journey start to look like? Aside from he's a bounty hunter and he's going to go collect all the pucks
Right.
and do all that and be a badass while he's doing it all, which we kind of anticipated as well. But some of the things I took from it, though, we got a really good look, and we actually had a good look at the costume for the Mandalorian at D23. They had a mock-up of it there in person, so a lot of great pictures of it. And I was a little surprised. It felt different to me than when we saw it at Celebration on those, mostly because the colors seemed a bit more vibrant, like brighter to me. And it really brought forth images from the holiday special cartoon, actually. And I know it's not the same color scheme or anything like that, but generally that feel came through a little bit more to me this time. And maybe just some of the scenes were brighter, or maybe I can crank it up the brightness a little bit on my computer or something like that. But those really popped out a little bit more to me, that there were these a bit different plates on his armor, on his breast, and then on the shoulders, that gave it a bit more of this feel like we saw from the cartoon. Did you get a different take on the costume at all?
Yeah, I did. And it did feel more like this. It didn't go to the extreme of the holiday special, but it felt more of that kind of character design than maybe what we saw, right? With something like, like a Jango Fett's armor is just kind of all silver and blue, right? And Boba Fett was a little bit, had more color in it, but this one felt more in line with what we saw from holiday special, although it didn't go to that extent, but it was still comforting, and it didn't really seem awkward. It didn't seem odd for me. There was one interesting piece about the armor, and I could not find this anywhere. I saw it on my feed, and I want to credit whoever it was that highlighted or pointed out. I hadn't had a chance to really go back and look at the trailer in any great depth, but it looked like the right shoulder of the Mando's armor, it looks like a shore trooper piece. It's got the same color of that like beige with the light blue just above it, which would be neat if he really did kind of repurpose armor, and maybe just not all Mandalorian armor. Maybe there are other pieces or stuff that he's put together. Would be kind of a neat little aspect if that were true.
Well, that's a great point, though, is that the armor did feel like it wasn't as uniform, maybe, as what we've seen on a Jango or even on a Boba. It did seem like potentially this is a little more cobbled together, even though the helmet is clearly, been fashioned specifically for whatever his preferences are. But yeah, the rest of the outfit looks like it has been assembled over a bit over time. It's not quite as uniform and consistent across the board.
Yeah, that's kind of neat. The one thing that I also enjoyed about this trailer, when it opens up, it's got all that imagery of like we see the stormtrooper helmets on the ground.
Yeah.
Then we see them on pikes, which is kind of eerie.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really telltale sign of where we are with the Empire and the lawlessness that they've been talking about. This is almost a warning, right? I mean, anytime, if you think back to ancient, history, if you saw heads on pikes, it was a warning that, hey, don't come in here, or you should be warned because this is what can happen to you, kind of thing. But I think this is a very clear message that's being sent to the Empire and what's left of the Empire in terms of wherever this town is, where they stand, and just how ruthless everything is at this point, given that the Empire is kind of in shambles, or at least been rocked quite a bit given the events of Return of the Jedi. So
right, and it continues to kind of question the story a bit, because we get is he a governor? I'm trying to remember exactly what the character was
at the very end.
Yeah, the guy that's talking, because clearly he's got stormtroopers, and we see death troopers as well, right? So what is the state of the Empire? Is it just these smaller factions? These questions that keep coming up of how much influence do they have? How much do people really fear them at this point? And like you said, because clearly they're given a warning sign of, this is what's going to happen if you come here. And these helmets are looking pretty worse for wear in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Even the ones through a Pike look like they've gone through some I don't know, some tough times, I guess we could say. But it really, it questions like, what is the state of the Empire? What's the state of what's left, the shambles of it? And are there these pockets of people who still want to influence the Empire, or is it just a power grab on a very local level of wherever these people were stuck at the end of the war, kind of like what we got in the novels from the Aftermath books?
We got a lot more imagery from the Razor Crest, which is the Mandalorian's ship. That was kind of neat.
Still can't believe that's a practical effect.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that
looks so great.
I don't know if we talked about that from Celebration, but if we didn't, just to summarize, there's a lot of practical effects, and they've gone to great lengths, painstaking lengths to reproduce these as practical effects, even though once they're on film, at least from what we saw, I mean, it's just, it looks like CGI and really good CGI, but you forget it blurs the lines, I guess, for reality in a lot of great ways. So it's kudos to them for going old school and doing a lot of this stuff. There's a shot in here too that I want to talk about. I don't know, what's this thing? It looks like an Ugnaught. It doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't look like an Ugnaught to me. It looks like Nick Nolte. He's riding this blurred thing.
It does look like Nick Nolte.
but I thought I saw a picture of Nick Nolte though from this that came out over the weekend as well, and he didn't look normal. Nick Nolte hasn't looked normal in almost 30 years, but he looked like a character from Star Wars. Maybe that was just the way Nick Nolte was dressed. I don't know, but I could have sworn I saw a picture of him, and under the caption it said that was his character from the Mandalorian, and yet I see this creature-looking thing, and it just, I don't know, it reminds me of Nick Nolte. So I don't know if they've confirmed who this character is, or whatever. But he's riding a blurg, and those blurgs, we've seen those guys in like was it Clone Wars, a couple episodes in there. I think there was one in Rebels at one point, but it's cool that Favreau is bringing in just little things like that. I mean, that could be any kind of creature, right? It could be anything that this creature's riding in terms of a mount, and yet they went ahead and pulled one of these obscure animals that we've gotten from the animated series to throw in there. And I think this plays to something that we saw from one of the interviews that Favreau did, and said that there's really you don't have to be a diehard fan with the high levels of trivia knowledge behind you to really enjoy the show. But if you do have that, there is going to be stuff like this in there that you're gonna geek over, which I think is gonna be really cool.
That's what makes Star Wars so special.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that make it special. Let's get to, in the Mandalorian, there's one cool shot in there where he's kind of up against the sunset. The imagery looks really great. I think they've done an amazing job, honestly. I mean, it's hard to believe that this is a TV show. I was watching this with I played it for the 14-year-old on Saturday, and he at one point he paused it. He was like, "Is this going to be a TV show or a movie?" And I said, "It's a TV show." He's like, "Wow," because it looks like a movie.
Right.
And I said, "Yeah, they've really done a great job with the special effects, the practical effects, the imagery, the cinematography. They've got all these great directors that have come in. The writing staff is amazing and really diehard." So again, I'm probably telling our listeners something they already know, but it all looks to be really good stuff here.
Well, it's that grit and dirt to everything too. Like everything feels like it's just left in shambles. And so it really brings you right back in. Like all the things that we really enjoyed about the original trilogy that were really important to George Lucas, of making it feel lived in, I believe were his words, are truly captured in this show and what we're seeing so far. And so I'm hoping that continues and we'd be able to really feel like it's just always been like this, or that this is what's left in this aftermath type of world. Yeah.
And I think that, just to touch on that, because you brought up a good point. One of the things that I've always enjoyed about Star Wars is it does feel lived in. It does feel, things aren't always pretty and polished, and yet there's something kind of beautiful about that. And I think we saw a lot of that in Rogue One, and maybe why, Rogue One did a really good job, I thought, of recreating that same look and feel, but it still was just very crisp and very, it was just a beautiful movie to watch. And I'm getting those same kind of feels from this. Things look gritty, things look dirty, things look old, worn, battered, weathered, and yet there's something aesthetically pleasing about it all. It feels very Star Warsy, for lack of a better term.
I think the cool thing is if you were to watch the movie starting with the prequels, and they're very pristine, right? They're very disorienting between that and the original trilogy. But then you go into the original trilogy, and then you start to pick this up right after that, right after Jedi. This is going to sync up with the original trilogy and the feel really, really well, which I think is because it's only a few years after Return of the Jedi, but I think that's really important that you still capture this continuity.
No, that's a good point. There's a scene in here where a mom's kind of holding a kid. I think we speculated at one point that maybe the puck, at least from that first episode that we saw, or the footage that we saw from Celebration, there was some kind of a bounty involved. But
yeah, maybe
I think we
child.
speculated, that it maybe it's a child. Maybe this is the child here that they show. And there's other things in there. We don't need to break this down. I think you and Mike are going to do a Patreon special to kind of to dig into all that. But I do want to just talk quickly about IG-11 because that was a highlight for me, I think, coming out of Celebration and seeing an IG robot doing, or a droid doing what it can do. We've talked about it, we've envisioned it, we've seen it in comic books, I've seen it in role-playing games and all that stuff, but being able to actually see it in motion and doing what it can do was kind of cool, and we got some more of that here with IG-11. And interesting enough, IG-11 looks like he's pairing up with the Mandalorian at one point in this little quick battle that they show. But did you find this footage any better than the stuff that we saw at Celebration, or about the same?
Dude, I lost my mind over IG-11. So yeah, no, it was great to see it. I mean, we had the IG-88 comic book just recently, right? And gave us this, I don't know, it kind of whetted the appetite a little bit of what he's capable of. And it's this amusing factor of that the IG-11 is misconstrued, or what's the right word here? He's always they always believe he's the IG-88. I'm sorry, it's getting late. But it's just really cool that we get this, and he's still a badass, and he's able to do all these flips around and all the things you would expect from a really seasoned bounty hunter.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing that was a little bit surprising, though, is that this was like a team up type of situation, though, because we always kind of equate bounty hunters working solo for the most part. I mean, we have examples to the contrary of that, but anyway, I liked this. I mean, I liked this idea, and we got a little bit more, flavor for it, a little more pizzazz and a little more flash, which I kind of enjoyed a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I thought it was cool. There's a great sequence in there where the Mandalorian takes that one, I forget the alien race now, squid head looking guys, slams his head down, and then, he tries to run for it and hits him with a cable, stops him midway through one of the doors. Then he pulls out a pistol looks like from behind, or maybe it's on the side I can't remember now, and then shoots a door to close it. It looks like it's going to close and cut this poor squid head in half, which was really cool. I mean, it's very kind of brutal, but
did you hear the sound effect though too?
No, I didn't catch that.
There's actually like a splat type of sound effect as it goes dark, which gives that impression that it did close on him.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I like that stuff. I mean, they don't show it, right? It's kind of implied. Maybe if they add the special effects, and that takes it to another level. But I think those are cool ways that they can still skirt around not going too dark with it, and yet at the same time making sure that he's a force to be reckoned with, if you will. Other things, we got some looks like some frozen carbonite people here, probably bounties. Someone mentioned that somebody famous from Clone Wars, and I forget who it was now. I didn't catch it. I'm still not 100% convinced that it's that person, but apparently that is somebody famous from Clone Wars. Did you catch that?
Nope, I don't know who that would have been.
Yep, me neither. And then it ends with no, you're fine. Like I said, it was so far-fetched. I sat there and I stared at it, and I could not make it out to be that person. I just all right, forget it. I spent 2 hours on this. I'm moving on. And that's kind of it. It ends with the, and I forget the quote at the very end that is it the commander?
Yeah, the governor.
It's the governor.
Complicated profession.
Complicated profession, right? So something we didn't, we already knew about, I guess, bounty hunters given.
I love the reveal of the title though, with the cape kind of flowing and almost unveiling it.
Yeah, that's funny. You said that was like the highlight for you in this trailer, which I think is cool, but I
mean, it wasn't the highlight, but it's one of the like when you have these really cool reveals, and you a little different way of doing that. I think that's just a lot of fun. I mean, and it is very much like his torn and tattered cape, being gently in a breeze kind of flowing away and then having him walk through the A. I think it's just a great image. Again, just great imagery and great, really sucking you into something that this is going to be, really entertaining and really exciting to watch and really capture that spirit and imagination.
Well, that's probably all we'll do for The Mandalorian. Again, or I shouldn't say we, but Jonesy and Mike will be doing a Patreon episode here very shortly. So if you're a Patreon member, you've subscribed, it only costs $1 to get in, and you'll get to hear them break this down in probably a lot more detail than we have done tonight. So look forward to that. I'm looking forward to it. Although I don't know if I pay. Do I get to listen to it?
We'll figure that out later. We don't give special treatment.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Let's move on and talk about
Clone Wars.
Well, no.
Oh,
Before we get to the Clone Wars, okay, we can talk about. Let's talk about Clone Wars. There's not a whole lot here.
It's fast. Yeah,
it is going to be a quick one. The Clone Wars. The only really big thing that we got was that it was coming in February of 2020. So we've been talking about this and speculating about whether or not this would actually make it out in time. They've been really tight-lipped about, when it would release. With the Mando, it was almost kind of a given. They were talking as though this would be one of the very first things that launched with D+ or Disney+. But with the Clone Wars, it wasn't so clear. There was, every time people would ask questions or Filoni or any of the creators or producers were pressed, they were a little tight-lipped about it. And we find out that it's actually not going to be coming out until February of 2020. So it's not that far away. I mean, all things considered, and we waited this long for it. What's another 4 months to wait for this thing to come out, or 2 months, I should say, after it launches. But are you disappointed at all that we're going to have to wait that long, or do you think it's going to be worth the wait, or any speculation as to why they'd be waiting?
I think it's going to be worth the wait. Am I disappointed? Yeah. But we've speculated this for a while now. I know Mike has, you have, I have. We all felt like this was happening. As soon as everything got clamped down, it seemed like this was pushed off for whatever reason. And again, this makes sense if you're trying to space content out a little bit, because what we did find out about Mandalorian is that it's going to be released weekly. So it's not going to be all dropped at once.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. You stage those out a little bit, and that gets you through January, presuming they pick back up in January. I don't know if they're going to stick to this through the Thanksgiving, Christmas schedules. Usually people don't. But if you're able to do all of them or maybe half of them, and then you have Clone Wars pick up and you have kind of this alternate cycle and you finish those out, that makes a lot of sense. So am I disappointed? Yeah, because I want to see it. But from a release schedule, not surprising. And it largely makes sense probably for what they're trying to do as they ramp up their content slate.
Yeah. I guess that makes sense. I hadn't really thought about it that way. We forgot to touch on the release schedule and that it would be coming out every week, which I am in favor of, just on the record, because there's something special and novel about being able to watch a show and, watch it again, then let it sink in, right? You go to work, you go to school, you're talking to family members for that next week. I miss those conversations of being able to talk about that stuff and just really, really speculate about what's coming up next. And you can point back to any number of episodes before the onset of like Netflix and binge watching and all of that. But with binge watching, I do like it. I get it. I mean, there's a pro to being able to just kind of watch 6 episodes in one night and be done with an entire series within a matter of a day or two. I get the benefits of that, but at the same time, I miss the fact that we just don't really get to dwell on these shows or the storylines. It seems like we start looking at this stuff and talking about this more holistically and talking about, brackets of episodes as opposed to single episodes. So I do enjoy that. Hopefully they continue that, and it's really not just to kind of space it out. And then we're going to, with this season 2, we get a massive dump of, 6 to 10, 12 episodes or whatever they're going to do with it. I would like to see them kind of release that on a weekly schedule so we can talk about it, make our life a lot easier to do these shows, right?
Well, and it feels like more of an event, right? And I think that's what we want Star Wars to be. You see it with Game of Thrones, right? So you have all the Netflix content, it's all dropped to you. And like you said, it's fantastic to consume all of that on your schedule, however quickly you want. But there's something to be said. I mean, we saw this firsthand, right? At Celebration, you have these watch parties, these events where you have this huge gathering of excitement. I kind of miss some of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the anticipation for the first episode, the anticipation for the next episode, or a cliffhanger, right? Yeah. Those things really do capture the spirit of fandom that I think is really exciting. And I think Star Wars fans in general are going to find a way to make this a big deal and have watch parties and really embrace this and really welcome it in with a lot of excitement. I think that's really exciting to see what people end up doing here in just a few short months.
Yep. The other thing that we got was so someone asked Dave Filoni whether or not, you know, with now that we've got live action television shows coming out with Disney Plus, whether there'd be any chance of us seeing some of his characters. And I think she was really trying to talk about Ahsoka, but you could really throw any number of the characters from Rebels, Clone Wars, and the other stuff in here. But they were asking, do you think we'd ever see them in a live action? And his response is just so Dave Filoni. It's like this awkward laugh at first. And he goes on to say, like, yeah, you know, never say never. And it was, you could see it in his eyes. Like it feels like this lady was asking him something that he knew the answer to, and the answer being yes. And I'm reading into his expressions. I'm reading into what he's saying. So don't quote me on this. But it does look like he's hinting here that maybe we are going to get something. So thoughts? Do you think we're going to get Ahsoka in? I won't say the Mandalorian, but I don't know, any of the live action stuff, new series or whatnot.
It's got to be talked about, right? I mean, and yeah, Filoni is a terrible liar, I think is what we're kind of coming around to, being around the bush. And a number of people online said he looked guilty, right? Which I think is probably pretty fair. And again, not a great liar, but it seems, I mean, everything's on the table right now, and Ahsoka has a lot of excitement to it. I still don't know that I'm completely warmed up to a live action Ahsoka TV show or movie or something like that. I'm trying to grab onto that because she's such an iconic animated character, and I like what they do with the animated side of things. But yeah, she's got to be on the table, right? I mean, there's so much you can do with it, and I'm okay with an animated type of series or a mini series or a movie or something like that. There's a lot you can do with that.
Yeah, I guess what maybe, well, I was going to say this might be a good segue into the Kenobi discussion, but you know, there was people talking about would she appear in Kenobi or something along the lines. Anyway, regardless of who it is and where it is, the idea that we would possibly be getting any of Dave Filoni's characters in live action, I'd be down for. I'm open to it all, and be exciting to see. So who knows? I guess we'll see where this goes. You want to talk about Kenobi?
Yeah, we can do that.
So,
God.
So if you haven't heard, there's a Kenobi live action series that's coming out in the.
Hold on.
Right,
I am super excited. What I'm not excited about is I'm going to have to do another Patreon episode where I talk about all of the humbling moments of being a podcaster. So, which is what the next Unscripted is going to be on Patreon in a couple of weeks. So
if you haven't had a chance, if you want some good dirt on Jonesy, go ahead and pay your buck now and listen to the episode he recently recorded where
all of that
dismissed the idea.
All that is 100% valid still. But yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about the humbling moments of like trying to forecast what's going to happen. And then something like the whole Kenobi news comes out and just kind of poops all over your day.
Oh, yeah. It's, you know what, though? We say so much stuff on the show that doesn't turn out to be true. And I'm not saying that, you know, we're the Mike Zeros of podcasts or anything like that, but it just happens, right? I mean, there's stuff that this is what we do. We speculate on stuff, and some of it's true, some of it's not. It's just fun stuff to do. But the only reason I was laughing was because the timing probably couldn't have been any worse.
Boy, yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, it was good. All right. Yeah, so anyways, Kenobi's back, and it looks like Ewan McGregor is coming back. It was really cool. I did enjoy the way they brought Ewan on stage, and you know, Kathleen Kennedy was there, and he tells her, "Hey, Kathleen, can you please ask me if I'm going to play Kenobi?" And you know, she does so, and he says yes. It was just cool. It was a little smile that he did there. So that was our confirmation. I think that was that Friday or Saturday of D23.
Oh gosh, days are
now.
difficult now.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you're fine. It doesn't make a difference one way or the other. But
Right, but you're right. The news that we got in the week or so before this event, considering we really didn't get anything else except that brief conversation, it does suggest that this all happened relatively. It wrapped up and then got locked in relatively recently to where I don't know, maybe they had this scheduled, but it didn't seem it wasn't all that scripted, right? It was a pretty basic conversation.
Yeah.
So it seems like this was a bit of we got this done in time type of conversation, or maybe they got far enough to where they're like, maybe he hasn't signed, but it was good enough and they're going to go ahead and move forward with it.
Yeah, I'm excited about the show. I've got a lot of questions, really, more than anything, and we have really no other details aside from that. And to be fair, again, if you look back at the rumors that were floating around, even on the spoiler channels of a few of the different websites, the talk was that Ewan McGregor was coming back to direct Kenobi, and then he was coming back to act in them, and so it was kind of all over the place. And I think there was obviously smoke there. I don't think anybody really had the full details. I think Fantatrax was the first one that broke the news, and then I think they pulled that story, if I'm not mistaken, because it got shut down, and then they obviously ended up turning out to be correct. But nonetheless, in terms of speculation and where this would go, it has to fall sometime prior, to the events leading up to A New Hope. So maybe we get like a Luke as a young kid. I think this is going to put him around 10 years of age, Luke Skywalker, about that time frame.
Right. They did confirm this is 8 years after Revenge of the Sith.
Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, he could essentially be a little boy that we would see his interactions. We've talked about this, and I don't remember what show it was, but we talked about the possibility of a Kenobi show and what we'd want to see. And I think one of the things that I remember saying that I would like to see is them get off the planet. Like, I don't know, and I could be wrong here, but I've just seen, maybe I'm just so burnt out on Tatooine, no pun intended, but it seems like there's just been a lot of Tatooine, and I don't know that that's as exciting or thrilling for me as, give me a couple episodes where there's, he has to be there, and maybe that sets up a few things, but then I would like to see him get off the planet and go elsewhere and do other things. And this plays into this whole, Uncle Owen talking about, the old Ben Kenobi and how crazy the old hermit, and all the stories and the tales that we hear about him.
Right.
I would like to see all that.
Crusade.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Right. I'd like to see where that makes, more sense. And maybe give a little bit of context there, or maybe just a relationship between those two. I think that would be interesting too, just to find out what that dynamic's like. And heck, who knows? Maybe Owen goes with Ben on a mission somewhere. But this can go a lot of different ways. You could bring in other characters as well, people that we've seen in Rebels or maybe you could bring in a Darth Maul element where they've seen each other again, or maybe you bring in somebody from like Solo, somebody like Kira. Maybe Kira's involved in some way, right? There's so much room here, and we've gotten at least some new characters over the last few years that I think there's quite a few things that they could do with this show, but at this point, it's really hard to say because we just don't have a lot of details. But any other thoughts there, or any other speculation that you have about what the show potentially could be?
No, we had a lot of great discussion in Discord. So if you're not in Discord, certainly encourage you to come visit us at eaglemedia.com/Discord, where we talked through a lot of this stuff about what are the potential storylines. You talked a little bit about the Owen relationship, also a lot of excitement around potentially the Qui-Gon and Yoda, the learning of life after death, as well as a variety of other characters that could come into the mix. I think we made lists of who all the characters seemed likely to be able to come into it, including like a Jabba. Again, it's hard to see how he leaves Tatooine though for me, because he's there to protect Luke. So if you leave, who's going to protect Luke? So I think that's some of the issues that might arise of for those who want him to be less landlocked to the planet. But again, you've got to have enough for him to do. I think if he's got enough to do and it's a compelling reason to be involved in whatever's going on, then maybe you get over that pretty quick. Presumably you could probably come up with different types of terrain on Tatooine to make it a little more interesting as well. But like you said, it's kind of a fun discussion and a fun speculation thing. They're not going to start filming this until next year in 2020, I believe, probably the second half of 2020 would be my guess. But supposedly they've already got some things working on it. But so I'm thinking more of a 2021 type of release. So this is still a ways away.
What if it's a team up with Jabba the Hutt, and at one point he tries to use his Jedi mind tricks, and that's how Jabba knows and tells Luke that the mind tricks aren't going to work on him because Kenobi tried it years before?
Maybe.
No. All right.
Or maybe it's a Boba Obi-Wan reunion.
Oh, yeah.
Turns out they got a lot in common.
Maybe.
BFF, buddy cop.
Yep. We'll have to spend some time on this in a little bit later and all these really crazy ideas.
All right. Let's get to the good stuff.
All right. We're going to end the show with The Rise of Skywalker. If you haven't heard, there was quite a few announcements made, including a little trailer they released. But before we get to that, they released a teaser poster that came out. And I really like this poster. I don't know why it's gotten so much flack, and maybe it's just the circles I tend to run around in, but it seems like half the group likes it and half the group hated it. But maybe that's just par for course with Star Wars these days. I don't know, but I thought it was a great poster. I like the imagery. The first thing I thought of was the Revenge of. I mean, it looks to me like the Revenge of the Sith teaser poster that we got before they changed the name to. Revenge of the Jedi before they changed the name to Return of the Jedi. It looked very similar to that. And I think I posted something on Instagram and just asked for what people thought about it, if they were feeling it or not. But I thought it's a great little teaser poster. I mean, I don't know what people expect from a teaser poster. And I think someone asked us, and it was either Discord or on social media, is this the official poster? No, it's not. This is a teaser poster. We should still get the big official release poster with all the images of the characters and, stuff shooting around and ships in the background and all that stuff. We'll still get that at some point, but this is what we're getting for now. So what were your thoughts on the poster?
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. It was great to see elements, a lot of debate over what they're fighting on, right? Because when you start looking at it pretty closely, it starts to look like the tractor beam controls that Obi-Wan was on in A New Hope. It looks reminiscent of that. A lot of damage, of course. So
I think that's it, honestly. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off, but I know to your point, there were I saw like 3 or 4 different things that possibly could be, but in almost every one of them, with the exception of this one, Rey and Kylo would have to be like humongous, like, like 20, 30 feet tall in order for the scale to work. And I thought there was somebody that posted the pictures of and I can't take credit. We're not going to take credit for this, but someone posted images of the tractor beam and highlighted specific parts of it from A New Hope and highlighted those parts on the image itself. So I'm with you. I'm pretty sure that's probably it.
Yeah, and some of the other speculation was like the spire that and you're like you said, they don't make a lot of sense. This one seemed pretty much to scale, but what I liked about, the lightning and everything was really cool. I think one of the other elements that was interesting, and this is where are you reading too much into it, is on Kylo's side you have the red lightning, but you still have elements of the blue creeping in. So for those who are firmly on board the Bendemption train, right? You have some of that element of saying, okay, no, it's that's the conflict, right? That's the struggle, the internal struggle, and there's visually you get that. Now it looks great to have those kind of commingling, but why are they happening around Ben's side or around Kylo's side, right?
Yeah.
But of course, the thing that's probably caused the most controversy, because why not? We have this glorious image of presumably the Emperor looming in the background, right? And a lot of confusion around whether it was actually him. I think some people thought maybe it was Luke, and so we got that all cleared up. But then someone came out and said, hey, this is actually the Sideshow Toys, Hot Toys version of Palpatine in the background. And they actually pulled the character out and kind of showed it. And I got to be honest, there's a lot of similarities between them.
Oh, Mike said it, you can't even unsee it. And to be fair, you can't, but I didn't bother me. I don't care where they got this from. They got to draw inspiration for something, right?
He kind of looked animated when you first see it anyway.
Yeah.
It didn't look like a lifelike picture to me in the first place. I thought it was almost like an animated Palpatine at first.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think you, Mike, maybe some other folks on Discord. That was even before we got into the Hot Toys toy thing. Early on, when we were first talking about this poster on Discord, that was the comment, was that it didn't look like Palpatine. It looked like it was a CGI. I think someone said, "Is this the one from Rebels?"
Right.
But no, yeah, I mean, I totally get it, and it is kind of hard to unsee it once you've seen it. Although I did try to make a good version of it so Mike could unsee it, and he didn't really appreciate it. But anyways, the
that was classic.
Yeah, thank you. But I don't mind. It didn't bother me. I don't think it really takes away from it. It kind of maybe spoils the magic just a little bit, but I think it's still a cool poster. The composition, I think, is amazing. I think they do a really good job with that. So
yeah, I love it.
Yeah. What else we got? Quickly, they showed the Sith Trooper there as well, and this is where we got into Placard Gate. So if you're an avid listener of the show, I think it was back on episode 286. We talked about this, and originally when the poster was, I guess when they first showed the Sith Trooper, where was this at? Was it at Comic-Con or San Diego? Yeah, it was San Diego Comic-Con.
Comic-Con, yep.
They had the Sith Trooper there, and the original placard was there. It suddenly got removed. It got replaced with a really generic one saying that the costume was designed by Michael Kaplan, appearing in Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker this December. So that's what it was changed to, like literally overnight. And originally, the placard that was shown at SDCC for the Sith Trooper said, in its ultimate push towards galactic conquest, the First Order readies an army of elite soldiers that draw inspiration and power from a dark and ancient legacy. And there was a lot of controversy as to why that placard was pulled. And I think, we now know the answer. Looks like someone just inadvertently put the wrong placard up at San Diego Comic-Con. They put the one that should have been up for D23. So they pulled it, remedied that situation. But at least we got it this time. So that's the official description for the Sith Troopers. And we also got a new one. We got a First Order Jet Trooper, not a Jump Trooper, which I thought was interesting. But First Order Jet Trooper was shown. And that read, the specialized stormtroopers of the First Order Jet Troopers soar into battle equipped with agile rocket packs. What'd you think of the design on that one?
Pretty clean. Actually, the helmet reminds me is very McQuarrie inspired.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of saying it.
It still captures a lot of like the snowtrooper type of look, but also some like almost Death Trooper, the angular aspects of the bottom part of the mask. So I kind of like it though. I mean, it's really clean. It feels more, spacey, I guess, even though I know it's a jet trooper. So, and we saw this, presumably this is what we saw in the trailer when we saw the original teaser trailer. Mm-hmm. But I think overall, not bad. It seems practical enough for Star Wars.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I like the look of it.
We need more troopers. So
yeah, we do. We don't have enough. The use of jet versus jump, I thought was interesting, and this makes more sense. With jump troopers, it was kind of like they could rocket up for a certain amount of time, and then they have to come back down at some point. I think Jet Troopers opens up their abilities a lot more, much like we saw with like the Mandalorians in the Clone Wars and then in Star Wars Rebels, and just being able to kind of go wherever they want to without a whole lot of limitations. So I think that's good. I think it's going to make for a more interesting battle with them when they are shown. And we did get to see one in the original Episode 9 trailer that we got, at the teaser trailer we got a few months ago. There was a lot of speculation. If you went frame by frame, you could tell that these guys were in there, although it was a little blurry. I think this is a solid confirmation that those were the ones that were, I think they were chasing Poe and Finn on Parnassus.
Right. On the skiff, right, with 3PO.
Yep. So all good stuff. We've got that confirmed, but yeah, looking forward to those. All right. So in the next 2 hours, in the next probably about 30 minutes, we're going to try to break down they call this a D23 special look. And essentially, I'm just calling it a teaser trailer too. You got a better word for that?
No, that works. Some people are using sizzle reel, but kind of seems a little different than a sizzle reel.
Yeah, that's true. So let's talk about this. And I thought maybe we could just go, I don't want to say go frame by frame or anything like that, but definitely want to touch on each one of the images and just kind of give some thoughts and opinions about what we're seeing and what we're feeling. The first minute or so of this opens up with, let me just start with, I really love the fact that they opened up with Yoda's theme. It's just it's one of my favorite pieces from all of the soundtracks, but it's very mood setting, and I think it set the right kind of mood, especially for what they were trying to do initially. It opens with Yoda's theme. We get the opening shot of from A New Hope with Luke standing there looking at the twin suns, which was always a favorite scene of mine as a kid, because I mean, that's what we do, right? We sit there and we stare off into space and ponder about what are we going to do next, and what's life going to bring us and all that. So I think it was a good way to start it. And from there, I was thinking, the next shot we got is Kenobi. And I started thinking, okay, well, these shots are kind of coming in order of the movies, but then once we get to the Empire, which we'll talk about here in just a few minutes, when we get to Empire, they kind of start jumping around. By the time we get to 7 and 8, they're kind of all over the place. So that made me started thinking, well, is there a reason why they put these shots in the way they did? Was this intentional? Was there a purpose behind it? Do you have any thoughts around why we got these shots? I mean, they're establishing shots for the characters and reminders and that kind of thing. But beyond that, do you think there was a formula here before we got into the new footage for Episode 9?
Yeah, some people are going to say that this is confirmation of the order you should watch the movies in.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The original trilogy, prequel trilogy, sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can leave it at that, I guess, and be fine with that. I think what I liked about it is that they, especially as you get into the more character moments of the Empire Strikes Back, and it really focuses more on individuals. And even as we get into the Phantom Menace, which I thought was really good. And while I don't know that there's much of a rhyme or reason to the sequencing that they did for it, I like how they selected the scenes, because they were these moments that really capture your, I don't know, it was really kind of an emotional upbringing out of me, at least, of these moments that start to really accentuate the saga as a whole and really remind you of everything that we've been through and really kind of everything that's at stake too, right? Yeah. And I think that was one of the cooler moments of it, of how they put this together before getting into the last minute of the new content, of really reminding us everywhere that we've been and this entire story. And it kind of ups the stakes a little bit too, because now we've said, okay, here's all the stuff that we have to live up to. And we're going to wrap it all up here in a 2+ hour movie somehow. So right. How are we going to do that? But I thought that was a really nice way of doing it and bringing everyone along and kind of really setting the stage, really setting the table for us before seeing this. I thought it was a really unique way of doing it. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too. Again, the sequence was pretty straightforward until they started jumping around, but it was interesting. It was almost kind of like the best of, right, these really famous moments in Star Wars, although you could argue there were a number of them that were all left out.
Mike's favorite scene slipped in there, so that was nice.
Which one was that?
Kylo and Rey touching hands.
Oh, yeah, they got that one in there.
You're welcome, Mike.
Yeah. But they showed, with like when they showed Ben Kenobi, I thought, okay, well, they put that in there. Well, Ben Kenobi's obviously pretty important, but the fact that they showed him from his first appearance in A New Hope, then maybe that was a way to, grease the skids on the fact that they were doing a Kenobi series. Same thing with like Boba Fett. They showed him and they showed him out of place. Like they were showing Empire, and then they jumped over to Boba nodding from Return of the Jedi, and then they jumped back to Empire. So it was just interesting why they would do that, given that was a whole nother 3 years after in terms of the movie. But anyways, I'm getting hung up on the little stuff like I always do. But we get through all of that, and I got really excited when they started showing like the Episode 1, the original trilogy stuff. I felt like they didn't spend enough time there, but they only got so much time to do it. But it was cool because it did end just before when they started showing finally 7. They showed 8. We got the hand sex there. There was a sequence there where they were going through a lot of touching. Right, they had Rey and Kylo touching. They followed up with Maz and Rey touching hands. Then they had Han touching Kylo's face, and then Rey reaching for Han or for Finn and kind of pulling him up. And that was not intentional. And I still don't know if I have a good meaning there or as to why they would kind of sequence those particular shots in order like that. They're obviously with the exception of just being the fact that they're all touching each other in some way.
Right.
But it was interesting. It did it was a highlight for me, I guess.
It's this connectedness between the characters, I think, too. And the symbolism that goes with it. And I think that's, it's personal. And I think that speaks to us because it is personal. This is a pretty personal experience for us.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like reconnecting in those kind of ways.
Yeah. And then 7, the footage from 7, I thought was great. I mean, it was some really good stuff. And I think the way it ended was perfect because it is still my favorite scene, at least from episode 7, where Rey is standing there and she's kind of, she's blocking and holding Kylo's saber there on Starkiller Base, and she's kind of has that moment of awakening, right? That's the you almost kind of feel like that is the moment that the Force awakens in her, and where she's kind of clashing sabers with Kylo, and then the lighting is just, I've always loved it. It's just, her blue saber and his red saber, and the fact that those kind of are coming together in the middle there, you've got like purple tones, and then you kind of get this moment of determination where she finally starts laying into Kylo Ren. I think that was a perfect way to set up 8 because it is a stark reminder of, how far she's come and what we're seeing coming into episode 9. All right, so that's kind of the preamble, if you will, to the footage for episode 9. So let's talk about the first shot, because this shot opens up new footage. We've seen the characters already. We've seen them in these costumes before, but we get Finn, Poe, Rey, Chewie, 3PO. They're all kind of standing there. They turn over, I guess they turn around or walk up, I guess, if you will. And there is some kind of a festival that's going on there in Parnassus. This looks very similar to some of the footage that we saw in the first teaser trailer. But anything else jump out here for you on this one?
Not really. Just a good establishing shot of them coming into the town. But again, it's nice that they're all still together. So presumably it's still pretty early in the movie.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's kind of what I'm thinking, that they're still all they haven't been separated, and hopefully they don't get separated too much, because I think they've made it pretty clear that they wouldn't, but you feel like they probably do have to separate it from time to time. There's one interesting thing that for me, like if you look at Poe in that moment, he almost drops his shoulders like he's defeated when he turns around and sees the festival. And right. I don't know if that's him saying like, oh great, we are going to have to go there kind of thing, or he's familiar with it or what. But if you look at his body language, he does definitely drop his shoulder, kind of does an exhale, almost kind of rolls his eyes like, oh boy, here we go kind of thing. And it was kind of cool. You can see the Falcon there in the background too. If you look closely off on the right-hand side there, you can just see a very slight hint that the Falcon's been parked way out there, and they've kind of walked it up.
Huh, I didn't notice that before.
Let's see, then it goes over to Leia on this jungle planet that we've seen in the teaser trailer. And this looks like it looks like it's a precursor or maybe a successor shot from the footage of Rey and her hugging that we saw in the first trailer, where I think it's Rey that's crying and they're kind of giving each other an embrace, but I can't tell if this came before or after it. She looks happy. So maybe this is her, maybe Rey has gotten words of wisdom, or, they've reconciled, or whatever it is to make her, to make Rey decide to go off and go on her journey. And that's Leia reflecting of, that it's a good thing that she's doing that kind of thing. I don't know. Any thoughts on that one?
Right. Yeah. Well, we saw some folks that had posted some comparison photos, I think, with Carrie Fisher from Force Awakens to this one. And it looks like perhaps they've enhanced her age a little bit. Like, so they put a little bit more weather and a little more gray in the hair. I think it's possible that this is an exact, true shot. There might be a little bit of doctoring, but yeah, you could take this in a variety of ways. It could be towards the end of the movie and more of a celebratory type of experience, or parting of ways. And, she's proud of where Rey has become, or whoever that she's interacting with. And
yeah,
it's just this moment of satisfaction, right? Or even maybe with Poe.
That's true. Yeah. We shouldn't assume that it's just Rey. It could be somebody else. There's the next shot it says a story of a generation, which I thought this is their way of signaling that it truly is. I mean, this is, our generation. It's coming to an end kind of thing. But there was the shot opened. It has this fleet coming in out of hyperspace. And I sat there and I paused this thing and I counted. And there are a total of 6 B-Wings, 7 Y-Wings, 4 X-Wings, about 9 to 10 A-Wings. It's really hard to kind of tell on those little guys. They're so tiny. It looks to be a blockade runner, or maybe it's a Tantive 4. I don't know. It's I think there's a lot of people that want it to be.
Yeah, that's the ship I was kind of talking about earlier. Some speculation maybe it's Zori's. But if she's a bounty hunter, how does that fit in with the Rebel Alliance / Resistance?
Yeah, I don't know. Probably not.
Could just be a freighter or troop transport too. So.
Yeah. And then there's one, and I thought this is what you were talking about, because the ship on the right-hand side of that blockade runner, or I'm calling it a blockade runner, but who knows? It could be some other freighter or some type. But the ship to the right of it, does that look like the Ghost? Or is it the Falcon?
Yeah, I don't know. It's really tough. I've got a pretty good freeze frame of it right now, and it does not look like, it just looks like more A-wings.
There are parts of it to me that look like the Ghost. The back, the way, if it is the Ghost, let me just say this. If it is the Ghost, it's been retrofitted with cannons on the front, because the Ghost did not have the cannons that you can see these little turrets. I think there's like 3. I don't have it in front of me, but there's like 3 or 4. I should probably pull it up. What am I doing?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you're talking about the big ship. Sorry. I thought you were talking about the ones around it. Yeah.
No.
It does not have the profile of the Ghost. And that's what I was saying. There's speculation that it's a new ship, something we haven't seen, something maybe Zori or something else, or just a new freighter. But it does not, because the Ghost has a little bubble at the top, right? And it's got the angular sides, and you could argue this is not front and center. You're not going to look at it straight on, but the Ghost has still got a pretty recognizable profile. I think we would likely have recognized it.
All right. Burst my bubble.
I know.
But if I'm right, I'll make you do a Patreon episode and apologize to me. No, I'm kidding.
Well, it wouldn't be the first one. But what's interesting about this shot is that, man, we've got, like you said, B wings, A wings, and Y wings.
Yeah, so where have they been? Where have these guys been?
Well, right, and these are Rebellion era ships. Like these don't look like they've seen a lot of dramatic improvement over the years. So, kind of assuming these are the same models. And there's a lot of speculation. Is this Snap Wexley, right, coming in for the rescue? Of course, we've also had some Battlefront, potential. What was her name? Zay. So maybe this is a way for them to come back in. So are these the reinforcements finally showing up that we did not get in The Last Jedi when they made the call? Right. Yeah. So now we're seeing, because we do have the X-wing. So presumably you could have Black Squadron, finally emerging.
Yep. Yeah, it's a cool shot. I do like it. We didn't really say this, but again, with J.J. Abrams and even and with Rian Johnson, all 3 of these movies just look absolutely amazing. The lighting and the use of light and color and all that, just they kill it, in my opinion. Because we get this shot here, all these ships are in silhouette, right? They're against a light background. It looks like foggy sunset, early morning kind of thing. And then immediately cuts to the next shot, which is one of my favorites from this, is really, you get this massive armada of Imperial Star Destroyers. The lighting's blue. You get these flashes of lightning that's happening in the background, which reminds me of later on when we talk about Kylo Ren igniting his lightsaber, whether this is all part of that same atmosphere or environment. But
yeah, very reminiscent of the Maw from Solo.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
And a bit from, didn't Rebels have something like this too? Maybe not. Maybe I'm superimposing some of this cross content here.
No, it's cool. But yeah, there's like almost 200 of these things, 200 Star Destroyers at least. I didn't sit there and count every one of them, but if you just eyeball it, go up and down, left and right, you can. There's about 200 of these things. So it begs questions like, where did these come from? Right. Were they? They could have been built out beyond the Outer Rim. This could be part of, Palpatine's contingency plan. This could be part of Operation Cinder. We know that we've got Sith troopers coming, and there's going to be a lot of them. Maybe this is where those Sith troopers are coming from. But there is something interesting about these. And I want to give credit to who was it? William George on Twitter. If you're listening, thanks for bringing this up, because he mentioned the Katana fleet, which was something that we had in Legends, which I thought would be really cool. If you go back to the Era Empire books and all that, there was a mention of the Katana fleet, which were all these ships that suddenly disappeared and they came back, and Thrawn was involved and all that. But There's one interesting about the ships themselves, though. If you look at the underbelly, it looks like they've got like cannons that have been like retrofitted onto the bottom of them. So these are definitely like Star Destroyer 1, Star Destroyer 1, Star Destroyer 2 Imperial Star Destroyers, and not First Order. But they do look like they have some kind of new tech that's been put on them underneath the belly there.
Right. This was a surprising shot. Not that we got Star Destroyers, but that we got the Empire era, and then we got over 200 of them. I mean, because that was just, I don't know, it kind of floored me that we were getting this. And I like the idea that they're coming from the unknown regions potentially, or something like that. That this is a secret fleet, right? Because we've read and we've established some of that content before, so it's great to see some of that coming in and be able to speculate about what this is actually going to represent, or where, like you said, where the heck where has this fleet been the entire time? And we get some shots later on. There's speculation about what the giant lasers are. Is it coming from these? Of what are these ships capable of, or are they it's just a massive fleet of Star Destroyers?
Yeah. I also want to know, okay, you've got 200 Star Destroyers. Presumably, this is going to be the end of the First Order, or maybe not. Maybe it's not. But let's just assume it is. It's the end of the First Order, and somehow they're going to be either decimated or, brought to their knees in some way. What force does the Resistance have that can go up against something like this?
Well, it's the same with like all the Sith troopers too. I mean, you just don't have the bodies or the personnel or the equipment or you just don't have the resources in order to combat something like this. So you're right. How do you overcome this insurmountable obstacle? And when the next frame, right, we have Finn and Jana was her name, right? Mm-hmm. Naomi Aki's character. I mean, looking somewhat distraught. We don't know what ship they're in, but it looks like they might be in this kind of Maw lightning type of storm area. And if they're looking at this fleet, they've just got to have this oh crap moment. Like what are we going to do with this? Because we are not prepared.
Yeah, I cannot wrap my head around it, and I'll put some more thought into this. Maybe we'll revisit it, but there's got to be a way that, and if they are part of a battle, I mean, this is going to be on the scale of nothing we've seen before in Star Wars, right? But I just cannot think the Resistance doesn't have anything this large. I mean, they're in shambles. They've got 20, 30 ships left in their fleet. They've been completely battered, decimated after, and I know some time has passed. I think we got a year that's passed since The Last Jedi. But there's no way they've gotten this big or have amassed a force large enough to take on this kind of firepower. So I don't know. It's just going to be interesting to see what happens. Maybe we get some crazy moment with Rey jumping from ship to ship and destroying them all, or maybe we get the moment that we saw in the. I'm really getting going off on a tangent here, but the Force Awakens, or was it Last Jedi? I forget. One of the art books has some images in there where she is literally flying around in an X-Wing, and she has her lightsaber sticking out the cockpit, and she's just scraping the underbellies of these Star Destroyers and taking them down like that. So I don't know, maybe they're reusing some of that concept art and putting it to use here. Maybe that's how she takes them down.
That would be pretty out there. I'll give you that.
Hey, I didn't make it up. It's in the books, man. Go read the books. It's in there.
I'll pull that one out.
Someone had that idea, not me. All right. What do we got next? Is it C3PO?
Yeah, the saga comes to an end, right?
Right.
We get some text, but then we get red-eyed 3PO. You may not have recognized him because of his red eyes.
Red eyes. There's so many memes right now of him being completely baked and just smoked out on pot. That's why he's got the red eyes. But all right, I want to keep this kid friendly. But I thought they were tickling me to death. But in all seriousness, he looks like he's sitting up after having some repairs. If you look around him, it looks like he's sitting in some kind of a repair thing. There's you can see these. There's one light that's on his left shoulder, and there's another clamp or something that's just beyond his left shoulder that you see very briefly. Above him, it looks like there's some drills, there's some wires. So my assumption here is that he is getting repaired in some way. And those red eyes we know from the Afra comics, right? So 000 has those red eyes. He's a protocol droid. He looks like, for those of you who don't read the comics, he's like a C-3PO droid, he's a protocol droid, but he's an assassin. I mean, he's probably the most cold-blooded murderer in all of Star Wars, which is fine on the comics, but probably wouldn't translate well into movies or television. But I kind of get the sense here that he's been tweaked in some way, right? Whether it was intentional or not. He's got some of those programs, or they've retrofitted him with something, and now he's a different kind of C-3PO.
Right. And this doesn't seem like he's been captured by the First Order, because this is pretty rudimentary. This seems like a hole in the wall type of place. It's got basically a stone wall with a little, basically just a tiny little skylight and some really cobbled together tools. So presumably this is either wanted upgrades in the First Order, or in the Resistance, or potentially maybe in some of these other more primitive paths that the team is kind of going through on. But again, it seems like maybe, and we've had the some of the quotes from Anthony Daniels that maybe 3PO has just finally had enough.
He's had enough. Yep.
Right. So maybe this is him doing some self upgrades. It's important to focus on self, as Biggs and Porkins taught us, right? Self-care is very important.
Oh man, I can't believe you brought that one up. But yeah, that's right.
We got to keep tying it back. Right. Yeah. It's all connected.
It's all connected. There's another Patreon plug.
Maybe he's just finally fed up with it, and it's time to take matters into his own hands, and he's going to single-handedly take out the First Order.
There you go. That's him. That red laser that we see here, it's coming out of his eyes.
Right. We don't see his fingers, so we don't know if there's something coming out, like with 000. 000's got all sorts of instruments of death.
Yeah.
But it's curious though, because in the comics though, they do explore that there is this code for droids that is really it's something that people are afraid to get out into the open. So is that something that's going to work its way in here? Nah, probably not in a lot of detail, but it is curious that we do get some parallels of it with the Afro comic, which is kind of fun to see.
Yeah, maybe there are parts of 000 that are used to repair him, because we don't know I don't think we know his fate. I mean, that comic is still active, so
right. Yeah, I mean, and again, this is 20. So the Afro comic is basically taking place in the era of Empire Strikes Back, I believe. A New Hope transitioning into Empire.
Yep.
Right. So yeah, a lot of time has passed. So we have no idea what happened to 000 or his programming.
Oh, that'd be so cool. Oh, what an Easter egg, huh?
That would be a fun Easter egg. I will give him that.
Yeah. We get the infamous laser beam hitting the ground. And this is where I know if you've been following social media with any kind of regularity here over today, this is one of the ones that, besides Rey at the very end, this is one there seems to be a lot of discussion about what's firing. And so we've talked about this a little bit already, but what's your best guess here? Are you on the bandwagon that this is being fired from the Star Destroyers that we saw, or are you in favor of is this another Starkiller base type weapon?
It's tough to say because we don't see the overall devastation. On the surface, this could be, if this is the start of mass destruction, then yeah, you start to trend towards another super weapon. If this is pretty localized, then yeah, maybe it's just a barrage from a really powerful weapon, but it's the Star Destroyer mounted. The style of the weapon, of the plasma, for lack of a better word, is interesting because it does seem very reminiscent of Starkiller base. This kind of fiery, not a laser bolt like we saw with the Death Star, but this almost like fiery type of material coming down that creates mass destruction as well.
Yeah.
So it's tough to say. I don't know which one I'd rather lean towards. I don't know that we need another super weapon, but we know even in the old, what comic was that? The old Legends comics, maybe it was Dark Empire. I think maybe actually been Dark Empire, where they had basically ship mounted super weapons as well, that they were able to do a lot of this type of thing with. And again, you could get away from the direct correlation of yet another super weapon by the Sith if it goes that route.
Yeah, that's kind of where I think I'm in that camp of maybe a hybrid of both, where you've got these Imperial, I do believe it's the Imperial Star Destroyers that we see, and they may have some kind of Starkiller tech or First Order tech that allows them to have these like mini cannons that can do, obviously a good amount of damage, but wouldn't necessarily be able to blow up a planet or blow up 3 planets in one shot kind of thing.
Right. When we've heard miniaturized Death Star tech in a couple of different ways in various forms of media. So it would make a lot of sense for this to be the case here in the movies. And again, if you have this on a few ships, you don't necessarily have to destroy the entire fleet to eliminate part of the immediate threat. But yeah, do we want to see another massive super weapon? Maybe not.
Right. This planet's interesting too. It looks like it's a snow planet, and I think Zori Bliss, again, going back to that character, she is from the snow planet of Kijimi. I think I'm saying that right. I haven't heard it officially said, but that is I think they've confirmed that is one of the new planets that will be in episode 9. So it does look like snow, though. If you pause it just before that blast comes in, you can see like snow-capped mountains in the background. There's snow on the ground, that kind of thing. But there's nothing. Surprisingly, you can see the ground before the blast hits, and there's nothing there. It just looks like snow. So it does question. I guess it begs the question of what are they trying to shoot at, and what are they trying to do? Like you said, if it's a super weapon, then it makes sense. Where it doesn't matter where they hit it, as long as they hit it, it's going to blow up. But if it is more strategic targeting, then it really does beg a question of what are they trying to shoot at here. So,
yep.
Well, we spent 10 minutes on a red light.
Training sequence.
Yeah. The training sequence. Did we skip that one? No, it's coming next. Up. It's right. Yeah. Ray training. So this one's got me scratching my head a little bit because first off, she's already standing there. When that shot opens up, if you look in front of her, there's already a tree that's standing there, was standing there, I should say, that she's cut in half. And she looks really like frustrated.
Intense, yeah.
Like intense, like something's really gnawing at her or bothering her. And then she flips around, and it's more than just training, right? We've seen her train, and she kind of had, like, if you think back when she's got the lightsaber and she's an Octu and she's sitting there doing her little katas or whatever with her lightsaber, she looks kind of intense there. She's always had this kind of aggressive, gruff look on her face when she fights, which I think is kind of cool. But this looks like there's more here than just that. But then she flips around. She in that first shot before she throws her lightsaber, you can see the red bandage that's around her left arm. She then turns around, throws a lightsaber. We see it fly. It cuts off another tree and cuts a tree in half. But it looks like she's throwing it at one of the training droids that we've seen from episode 4.
Right.
And then we saw it again in The Force Awakens. If you remember, I do it every time. Finn picks one up. Remember when he's on the Falcon there, and he's like looking for something that Rey wants, and he picks it up and he looks at it and just kind of chucks it to the side.
Yeah, this one's red, but yeah,
this one's red or brownish color. So maybe it's not the same one, but it definitely is a training droid of some sort. But if you look at the droid actually moves up kind of almost at the last second to get out of the way of that spinning lightsaber, which I didn't think they would be able to do that. I thought they just floated around and shot stuff. I didn't realize they were meant to be attacked in some way or could avoid being attacked by a lightsaber. But what do I know?
Right. Yeah, she's super intense. It's a confusing sequence. It was really cool to see a saber throw.
Yeah.
And then for her to call it back. But like I've got it frozen now as she catches it. And yeah, she's just got this really, really focused and intense and almost angry look on her face. So it's difficult to, it's a frozen frame. So you have to take that for what it's worth. But it really suggests like there's more to it. And again, what's with the red scarf around her wrist, and what's that about? Where's what's the cause of that? And does it have any other significant meaning? We're seeing some speculation about what the meaning of this red is in a couple of different instances. But yeah, again, why would you destroy trees? So if you haven't seen it, this is a bit of like almost like an Endor type of environment. You think those style of trees, and a little un-Jedi like to go and start, basically deforestation.
Well, let's not get carried away. But yeah, I'm with you there.
Or is it deforestation? I can't remember.
Deforestation, yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, I guess the other things so going back to the red bandana, there's obviously something to be said if you're Katie, if you're listening. I don't know if you listen to the show anymore, but we've talked about the red thread of fate. We talked about that in The Last Jedi. If you're a Reylo fan, that is hugely like on your mind, because that's the whole point, is that these two lovers are tied by a red string. And when this came out, I know this sent Reylo fans in just crazy, because it kind of plays up in that. So I think it's intentional. I really do. I don't think this was unintentional to use a red piece of fabric like in the way they did. Whether you like it or not, that's just the way it is. Sorry, folks, but that's kind of what I thought about that. It was interesting also that she was fighting with a stick, and I think we saw this. I think in the teaser. I should have watched that before we did this, but she doesn't have her staff with her. Like, she's not using that to fight. She's got like a staff, or like just basically a man-made staff that in her hand, rather than the one that she normally uses. So that was interesting as well. Yeah, and the only other note I had is what you said. I liked the fact that she did a saber throw, because the only other person that I know that does saber throws is Darth Vader. Is that right?
That's all we have right now
for canon, anyways. But
for canon, right?
So anyways, yeah, it was a cool scene. The only I would say speculation wise, yeah, maybe she can't go somewhere, right? Maybe she's here on this planet and she wants to go and she feels like she needs to go, but she can't for whatever reason, and she's got to do training, or maybe Leia's training her and Leia's keeping her from leaving, and she's trying to prevent her, much like we saw with Luke and Yoda making sure that Luke stays there and completes his training. Maybe there's something going on, and Leia's trying to help her out and tells her, you can't go. You need to stay here, focus on your training, kind of thing. And that's what puts her in this mood of frustration, because she knows she can make a difference. She should be making a difference, but she's trying to listen to, somebody like Leia, who's a general and force sensitive and all that. Right.
Right.
That's the best I got. We get Kylo leaving his ship. There's not a whole lot here, but it is interesting that he gets out of the ship. Looks like the same ship that we saw in the teaser that Rey flips over.
Yep.
I would say that the only thing that just kind of blows my mind is if those shots are connected in some way, then how do you go from, a hot desert planet, jumping over that, to what looks to be either a cold planet now, or maybe a really foggy rain condition? Yeah, I don't know what you want to call it.
Well, and there's this blue lightning in the background as well. So presumably they're all in the same vicinity as where we saw the Star Destroyers too.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, is this working towards the climax? Again, we're seeing him walk up, and then the follow-up shot is we see them fighting right on presumably the remnants of the Death Star with all of the water, some of the things we saw in the Vanity Fair. So those scenes appear like they could be connected. Those might be a pretty, you don't have to stretch very far to say that these are all kind of a connected sequence. But yeah, this is starting to work towards the climax of the film, where we have all of our pieces coming back together for our big finale.
Yeah. What did I have on this one here? Oh, looks like there's debris all over the floor, all over the ground as well. Right. In a couple of those frames there. So I don't know if that's the ship itself. Maybe when Rey flipped over backwards, she either took some pieces off of it or put it into a state that made it crash, and that's Kylo getting out. I thought it was interesting that he was getting out without his helmet, because we know he wears the helmet in this movie, but I think
we didn't see it in this sequence or in any of this either.
Right, in any of the footage that we saw for this, he didn't have the helmet on. So I really I'm trying to put together how this all kind of plays in. You can almost make an argument that this happens early on. That this scene here, and even maybe the battle with the Death Star and all that, maybe that happens at the very beginning, and they get separated and they come back to all of that. Maybe that explains. I don't know.
That's very possible. Yeah, because as I'm kind of rewatching it here, these sequences do not seem connected at all when they go out, because this where they go and have the confrontation where we actually see them fighting with sabers is not the same as what we see in the poster, right? The new poster. This is some sort of, this seems like a piece of not the infrastructure side of the Death Star, but perhaps some of the surface material. If this is a Death Star, I mean, it's just kind of a high-tech wall, but we're making some leaps of faith here. This is the planet with all the water, so presumably they've ventured out a bit.
Yeah, I think it is a Death Star, or at least remnants of it. And I didn't really
in the background. You can kind of see things that look like jaggedy pieces of metal that you could probably go with that.
Yeah, if you look at the left-hand side, you can see what looks to be a turret, like the turrets that we saw in episode 4. I don't know. Again, I don't have it pulled up right now, but
a bit. Yeah,
that was the only thing that made me think, okay, well then if that truly is a turret,
you're right. Yeah, I see it now. Yep.
Yeah.
Good call. I didn't catch that.
But that would be beyond that, right? It could be any other part of the Death Star, or it could be under any debris that's floating in there. But given the fact that we saw the Death Star in the teaser, and then we get that, it's probably safe to say that that's what they're doing. It is cool that the waters are so turbulent, which is interesting. So again, I don't know where this thing has landed. Well, presumably it landed on Endor, is somewhere in. We know Endor's got water, so it's not far fetched that this would be happening. But why the waters are so turbulent, I don't know if that's a byproduct of where it landed, or are they that far out to sea? Is it the fact that they're fighting and somehow they're causing the climate changes that we're seeing, and maybe some of the inconsistencies that we're seeing with the climate? That would be kind of an interesting take on the Force. But the one thing about this battle too, it's really quick. I mean, there's only 3 shots, I think, total. Literally 3 shots that are taken. But it looks like Rey's way more offensive than Kylo is. Kylo looks like he's defensively blocking these shots, and Rey's just trying to go at him, which I thought was kind of interesting that it would be a role reversal. You would think it'd be the other way around, but he almost looks like he's on the defensive for most of that little quick battle that they show there. I think that's all I had on this one. Do you have anything else?
No. Now we get to the meaty part.
All right, let's talk about this. We get Darkside Rey. I don't know what we're calling her. Darkside Rey, Sith Rey. You got a better term for that one?
No. But before we get that, though, we get a blank screen, get a black screen.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, we get Palpatine saying your journey, it sounds like Palpatine at least, your journey is nearing its end. Right. Which was really cool to have new dialogue, creepy dialogue. And then to get the reveal of Darkside Rey or Evil Rey, however you want to say it, with no less than a double red blade ignited, was pretty unexpected. And this was the frustrating thing when you hear all of the reports coming out of D23 and not being able to see this. It's like, come on, somebody has to have a picture of this somewhere, and nothing surfaced at all.
Well, I want to
go for it.
I want to give credit to that one person on Twitter who took pen to paper and tried to draw the lightsabers for us. It did not look like this at all, but it was a very noble attempt for them to draw. They obviously didn't have a good hand, a good artsy hand to draw it, but it looked like 2 pipes. It literally looked like PVC pipes that they drew, but it looked totally different when it finally came out. So, but yeah, you're right. It was frustrating because I really wanted to see this. I couldn't, and there were all kinds of other images. Fan art has been making Dark Rays and Sith Rey for quite a while now, for a few years. So those suddenly all resurfaced almost immediately once word got out that there was a quote Dark Rey out there, and most of them were pretty good, but I don't think anyone really truly nailed the look of it until it finally came out. I want to go back just really quickly to that question of your journey's come to an end, or what was the line on that one? Yeah,
journey is nearing an end.
Journey is nearing an end. So and this is the same kind of question that we've asked probably. I know we asked it in The Force Awakens, and there may have been a line in The Last Jedi, but who's he talking to here? Is he talking to Rey? Is he talking to Kylo? Is he talking to Vader?
Right. And we get a lot of sound effects in this whole sequence as well that really blur those lines. And yeah, I mean, it seems to fit Rey, right? I mean, because Kylo has even said it too, right? Her part in the story is done. It's over. He says that in Last Jedi. So it would be fitting for some of those same themes to pull over in Rise of Skywalker, and to be able to apply some of that, but from a more malevolent force, right? And Yeah, but you're right. It could really apply to a number of things depending on which path you kind of subscribe to that the story is going to follow.
Yep. I don't have a good answer. I'm going with Rey just because she's there, but they pulled a fast one on us many times before. So
she's the more obvious choice right now because clearly she's the catalyst for a lot of these things to resolve themselves, or she's the major stumbling block, I think, for whatever plans the First Order has ultimately.
Yeah. If it's not Rey and it's anyone else, it definitely puts a cool spin on this particular scene. So, the saber, I think we were talking about that on Discord today. Definitely looks like the Jedi Temple Guardian pikes that they use, or even Pong Krell's sabers. I watched that scene today again with Pong Krell. It's one of my favorite lightsaber scenes. He's just so fast with those things. But yeah, it's so I thought it was kind of cool that they brought in a new lightsaber that we haven't really seen in, obviously, in the movies before, though we've seen it in the Clone Wars and Legends and all that. The blades look unstable. That was definitely intentional. I mean, make no mistake about it. When she ignites those blades, or when she holds them up, you have them in front of her face. They're not clean and they don't look crisp. They look unstable, like Kylo Ren's saber.
Right. Yeah. Sparking. Yeah.
Yep. Some people were quick to point out that she's wearing a ring and whether there was any significance there. We know Leia wears rings. We know Snoke had a ring. It could be anything really. It could just be part of the look for all we know. But all of this kind of leads up into the big question of whether or not this is truly Rey, or is this some vision of Rey, whether it be Rey's vision of herself turning to the dark side at some point. Maybe it's Kylo Ren's vision of how he sees Rey at some point, that kind of thing. But what camp are you landing with this one?
Well, if we want to draw from what we have seen historically, when we look at Anakin, especially when we look at like the Mortis arc for Anakin, less so in the movies, but in the Mortis arc for Anakin, where he actually has these visions of what's to come. Mm-hmm. And we had it with Luke in Empire as well, where you have this moment where you are actually confronted with the darkness, and with this, you start to have this question come into your head, and a bit of clarity too about this is a very dangerous moment for you, right? And we've heard that a couple of different times throughout all of the content that we like.
Yeah,
and we haven't really had that type of moment with Rey yet. We've had it more of an emotional, like these, like kind of like with Ezra, right? His temptation has been a lot more with the emotional side of things, the attachment side of things, being able to let go, or the family aspect, things that Rey has struggled with as well. And we've seen that temptation, but it's never really quite, and we've had a little bit of the anger and aggression in The Force Awakens, but we haven't really had this pure, opportunistic type of allure to the dark side for Rey. It's always been, pursuing something, which again is perfectly legit and fine, because that's a very powerful element, especially, it draws on your most personal needs, wants, and desires. But we haven't had this kind of thirst for power, but to go back to the conversation before, this frustration maybe that is mounting. And we saw this in the comic book we talked about a few weeks ago, where Palpatine is even tempting Luke and influencing him in some ways of his emotion and what it means in trying to direct his path in a different way. And you could definitely draw a lot of those same correlations to what we're seeing here. And because this doesn't look like Rey. I mean, it's Rey, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she's very, almost porcelain-like. That's a bit dramatic, but very stoic. No expression, no emotion, and her environment seems very cave-like from Last Jedi, a bit like in the mirror sequence. So there might be some of that, right? But again, we haven't had really this core temptation of pure evil and darkness for her, at least not for me. And so this might be this moment that's finally coming to a head, kind of like what we had with Luke and Jedi, where you've had enough and you start to snap, and then you've got to stop and make the choice. But have you gone too far to make the choice?
Yeah, I quite simply, I'm of the camp that this is a vision. I think
believe
it
so, too.
echoes. Yeah, I think it echoes what we saw with Empire Strikes Back and the cave, and there's some symbolism there with, especially when Vader comes out, the way she looks here and the way he looks. I definitely picked up on that. But I think my reasoning behind this being simply a vision and can only be a vision is much more basic than even that. At the end of the day, and this is I alluded to on Discord today that I'd talk about this, and I won't get on a soapbox too long here, but at the end of the day, Rey is the heroine in this trilogy, right? And Disney has gone through such great lengths to set Rey up on a pedestal. She is a Disney princess for all intents and purposes, at least in the eyes of young girls and young boys that look up to her. And when I think about people like my daughter, who's 5 years old, is absolutely, I mean, this is her character. This is her Luke Skywalker. It was my Luke Skywalker. As I had mine, this is hers. And she looks up to Rey. She's got the costume. She's got the toys. She's got the dolls. She has the bedspread. She's got the pillows. She's got the curtains. I mean, just on and on and on. I can just say, hey, honey, Rey is on TV right now. And her eyes light up and she runs over to the television and will watch anything that's in her. And she yells, Rey! I mean, she screams at the top of her lungs. She's so excited at this. You can't tell me, as cool as the story as it may be for me as an adult, that Disney would ever go and do something that would make Rey evil and completely just crush all these young girls and young boys and young fans that have looked up to her. Again, from a narrative perspective, I think it's a cool story. There's probably a story to be told there, and as an adult, I could really get into that and enjoy it. So long as, but I still would think at some point there would have to be some kind of like a redemption arc, right? She would have to come back from the dark side. So for me, it all boils down to the simple fact that as much time and money and love and care that they put into this character and establishing the first female Star Wars character that was like front and center, and I'm not taking anything away from Leia, but these are Rey's movies. I can't see Disney going back on that. I think this is just a vision. I think at some point, either she has this vision of what potentially she could become, or maybe Kylo Ren. I think he said it in Last Jedi that maybe he saw this and now he's heralding back to that, and he's thinking about what this would look like, and maybe that's why we see the saber being unstable as well. Maybe they're in this future vision of her being a Darkside user, she ends up killing Kylo and takes the crystal out and replaces it into this new hilt, and that's why it crackles the way it does, because it's unstable and it's really his crystal, and maybe that's part of the vision, that she's going to conquer him and take over him and kill him and that kind of thing. So, anyways, all that to say, I really am of the camp that I think it's just a vision, just simple, because I just don't think Disney would do that to my daughter and to a number of fans that have grown to love her. They've put so much time and effort into this character that I don't think they would do that in the last movie of this saga.
I agree. The imagery is really powerful, though, and it gets you thinking, it gets you talking, it gets you excited, right? But you're right. Narratively, it's a bit late to go down this route, but you could always, again, the temptation, the idea that it can still go wrong, right? And then she still has to make the right choices, or she's got to come back, much like Luke did in Jedi or Return of the Jedi. You have to come back from and recenter yourself whenever you start to go down that path, right? So again, I think we're both in agreement here. We don't think this is real. There's some sort of vision. There's some sort of prophecy type of deal going on here, to borrow from some of those words. But there's something here that's being shown to her, or that this potential alternate future could exist if she continues down a certain path. And again, she's got to, it's going to come down to choices. She still has to make some choices, I think, in this of doing the things that are core to her values. And ultimately the good guys have to win, right? So,
yeah, that's what Star Wars is, right? It's always the good guys. The bad guys come back and they help out, but at the end of the day, it is about the good guys. It's not about the bad guys.
Right. But what makes it so interesting, though, is this internal tension that this allure, right? The Anakin, his story of being able to make the right decisions or the inability to make the right decisions or making decisions you think are in the best interest, but really you continue to make the wrong ones and you dig that hole a little bit deeper. So, but again, that's what makes these characters interesting, right? And that's what will make her interesting. If there still feels like there is some sort of conflict and weight pulling her towards the dark side in some way. And I think that's what we still want to see that, right? We still want to see her struggle with that so that she's not so completely pure. And I think that this is what this is establishing is that, it's not all sunshine and rainbows for Rey. She's not 100% perfect, right? Like some people have been very critical of that. And I think while she still might come to the right conclusions, you don't always feel like you're going to make all the right decisions along the way. And maybe she makes a few that end up being wrong.
Yep. And just for the record, if anybody tries to use the counter argument that Anakin was evil and killed young kids at one point, I have another counter argument to that, but we won't get into that. All right. I think we'll end it here because that's kind of how it ends. We get the, that was obviously a big shocker. I think I've shown it to everybody in my family and anyone that would listen at work today, and they were all shocked. So
you're not buying in that when we have the laughing and the Vader breathing, that there are other voices in the backgrounds.
I'm not saying there aren't, but I'm way too old to try to, I'll wait till somebody figures all that out. But I hear something there. I'm not going to say I don't, but I cannot make sense of it. I have no idea. It's like
one of these ghost hunter shows where they swear they're hearing something, but you cannot make it out.
Hot dog. That's what I heard.
Hot dog.
Yeah. Until it's proven otherwise. That's what I heard. So.
I like the idea that there's something there, though. That would be really cool if you just have all these layers. But you're right. Until we can get someone to pull all that apart, which I don't know how reasonable that is, it's really difficult. It's just pure speculation.
Yeah. I don't know. There's definitely something there. I'm not going to deny that, but I don't know if it's somebody just screaming, if there's words being said. I've heard it's, Anakin. I've heard it's Kylo Ren. I don't know. We'll wait and see. If you guys have any theories, I'd love to hear them. Either put them on social media or come into Discord and post what you hear. Give us some audio samples if you got it. But that would be really cool for somebody to break that down. But it won't be me.
Not yet.
Not yet.
We got a few months to go, buddy.
Yep. All right. Well, let's close out with we got some shout outs.
Yeah, we do. Shout out to Al Scott, who send us an email with the link to YouTube, and we'll put this in the show notes. He basically he's a digital artist, I presume. He redid the intro to Star Wars Droids, and when he heard the episode that we recorded last week, he kind of dug it back out and he put it to the original music and more, and a more contemporary version of it, and it's really well done.
It is.
And I really enjoyed watching it. This is the first time I'd seen it, but I really enjoyed watching this.
No, I did too. It's essentially, he's got C-3PO, R2-D2, and BB-8. Just kind of re-envisioned the intro for the Droids cartoon that we talked about on the last episode. But we were talking about this before we came on the air. Like, you could throw this on like Disney Kids or Star Wars Kids, and my kids would watch it. I haven't had a chance to put it in front of them, but it's really cool. And the music, it's just great. Like, it's the original music from the theme song from the cartoon that he used. So, just really job well done, Mr. Al Scott, in what you put together here. So congrats.
Yeah. So thanks for sending that over to us. Sorry it took so long to get back to you on the email, but giving you a shout out on the show instead. We also had 2 more new Patreon members this week, which is amazing. We're on quite the run here. So Kara, longtime listener to the show, she's like an OG basically. And then Ashot, who I believe is AskHim82 over on Instagram, recently signed up as well. So huge thanks to both of them and appreciate the support.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
Yeah. And then of course, all weekend, man, with all the social media you and Mike have been posting and all of the great conversation, just wanted to say everyone, thanks who's on Instagram and Twitter and on Facebook and all the comments and all the reshares and bringing other people into it. It's been a lot of fun to get everyone's take on it. And man, it's been a flood of information, but it's been really cool and fun to watch it. And especially all the folks over on Discord as well. Thanks for all the interactivity. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, agreed. I couldn't even keep up with it. It's just been overwhelming. So it's been really nice to have engaging conversations with some of our listeners. But and it bodes well for the future. Like I know summer was kind of, it was slower. We didn't get a whole lot, but yeah, with all this new content coming out, and especially once we get to episode 9, that it's going to be pretty busy. So we're looking forward to it.
Right over on the Patreon front, supposedly we're going to have a Cantina After Dark. So we're going to see if Mike can carve a little time out for us, and we'll do a little deeper dive. He is hook, line, and sinker in on the Mandalorian. So if you'd like to hear Mike's take and do a little bit deeper dive on the Mandalorian, we're going to have Cantina After Dark posted hopefully here in the next day or so. Again, today's Monday the 26th, so hopefully by Wednesday we'll have that out there. I believe that's at the $2 tier, not the $1, but the $2. So if you're at $2 or up, you should be able to get to that. So if you enjoy that, it's a little more, again, opinionated. Every once in a while we slip a little language in, so it's not always as kid friendly, but we try to just still keep it pretty kid friendly. So, but a lot of fun. Hope you guys will tune in for that. And if you miss Mike, it's your chance to get your little New England accent in there, your Yoders and whatever else. That's right. And then over on the network, Smoking and Drinking in Space started a new series, 11/22/63. What I liked about this one was that there was a whole debate, I think, with Jason, Rob, and Crowley, whether or not this is even sci-fi, which I always have a huge kick about anytime they start to debate if it's actually sci-fi or not, because I give Jason a hard time that he needs to bring Biodome, which is one of these guilty pleasure movies of mine from when I was in high school with Pauly Shore.
Yeah.
And Stephen Baldwin, yeah. And Kylie Minogue, so it's right up your alley. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So so anytime there any kind of debate about whether something fits Smoking and Drinking Space, I just get a huge kick out of it. So anyway, there is adult language on the show. So if you're sensitive to that, maybe pass on it, but encourage everyone to go check it out. It's a lot of fun to listen to.
Cool. All right. Well, if you've made it this long, you've been on with us now for the better part of 2 hours. We thank you for sticking it out to the very end. We'll be back next week and the whole brand new show. Be sure to check out Patreon. Be sure to check out all the links. We used to run through all that. We don't do it anymore, but you got all the links in the show notes there. So please support us if you can. And we would really appreciate it. All right. Anything before we go?
Nope. Let's get out of here before you turn dark.
Hey, I am dark. You already know that. All right.
Whatever. You smile too much to be dark.
No, I just meant, never mind.
Oh,
all right.
That's
we'll see you guys next
joke,
week. Yeah,
Albert.
All right. And with that, we'll see you guys.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.